The champagne flute trembled in Savannah Blackwood's hand as Dr. Theodore Bennett slipped the 3-carat diamond ring onto her finger. The ballroom of Boston Memorial Hospital erupted in applause. His colleagues beamed, smartphones capturing the moment as Theodore's lips brushed against her ear. "Perfect," he whispered. "Now everyone knows you're mine." Something in his tone made her shiver, but she maintained her smile. At 23, Savannah was the youngest head nurse in the pediatric oncology department, and Theodore, at 34, was Boston's rising star neurosurgeon. Their engagement made sense on paper, the culmination of a practical 18-month relationship. "Speech," someone called from the crowd. Theodore squeezed her waist possessively before stepping toward the microphone. As he launched into practiced remarks about their future together, Savannah's eyes drifted toward the entrance where a commotion had erupted. A man stood framed in the doorway, flanked by security personnel who seemed unsure whether to escort him out or bow. Even from across the room, his presence commanded attention. Tall with sharp features, dark hair swept back from a face that graced business magazines. Elijah Harrington, the prodigal son of Boston's wealthiest family, had returned after years abroad, rebuilding his father's crumbling empire into something formidable. Their eyes locked across the room, and for 3 heartbeats, everything else disappeared. His expression shifted from indifference to something dangerous, interest. Theodore's voice faltered mid-sentence. He'd noticed. "As I was saying," he continued, voice hardening, "Savannah will make a perfect doctor's wife." Wife. The word echoed strangely in her mind. She'd agreed to marry Theodore because he represented stability, something she'd never known growing up with a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat. Yet something felt wrong about his declaration. After the speech, Theodore guided her through the crowd, his grip on her elbow just tight enough to be uncomfortable. "I need to speak with the chief of surgery," he said. "Stay where I can see you." The moment he stepped away, she slipped toward the terrace, desperate for air. Boston's skyline glittered beneath a clear October sky. She inhaled deeply, the evening chill cutting through her borrowed designer dress. "Running away from your own engagement party?" She turned to find Elijah Harrington leaning against the stone balustrade, studying her with unsettling intensity. "Mr. Harrington," she acknowledged, instinctively straightening her posture. "I wasn't expecting Boston's most elusive billionaire at a hospital fundraiser." "I go where I'm needed," he replied, his voice lower and rougher than she'd imagined. "My grandmother is a patient here. Stage 4 lung cancer." Shame colored her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I'm actually head nurse in pediatric oncology." "I know." At her surprised look, he added, "I make it my business to know everything about the people caring for my family." He moved closer, and she caught the scent of sandalwood and something uniquely him. "Congratulations on your engagement, Miss Blackwood. Dr. Bennett is fortunate." The way he hesitated made her wonder what he knew about Theodore. "He's a good man," she said automatically. "Is he?" Elijah's question hung between them, his eyes searching hers. "I've recently acquired Meridian Pharmaceuticals. We're expanding our cancer research division and need someone with your expertise to oversee patient care protocols. I already have a job. I'm offering triple your current salary, flexible hours, and funding for your mother's multiple sclerosis treatments." Her breath caught. "How do you know about my mother?" "Like I said, I know everything about the people who matter." He produced a business card from his jacket pocket. "Think about it, Savannah." The sound of her name on his lips sent an electric current down her spine. "There you are." Theodore's voice cut through the moment as he stepped onto the terrace. His smile didn't reach his eyes as he assessed Elijah. "Harrington, didn't expect to see you back in Boston." "Bennett." Elijah nodded coldly. "I was just offering your fiancée a job." Theodore laughed, the sound sharp and false. "Savannah's quite happy where she is." "Actually," she interjected, surprising herself, "I'd like to hear more about the position." Theodore's fingers dug into her waist. "We'll discuss this later, darling." Elijah's eyes narrowed at the interaction. "My grandmother would like to meet you, Miss Blackwood. She's in the gardener wing. I think you'll find her illuminating." As Theodore pulled her back inside, Savannah felt the weight of Elijah's business card burning in her clutch, along with the strange certainty that her carefully planned life had just been set on an entirely different course. Savannah stared at her reflection in the hospital bathroom mirror. 3 days had passed since the engagement party, and Elijah Harrington's business card remained untouched in her wallet. Theodore had been unusually attentive since their encounter, calling twice during her shifts and waiting in the parking lot after work. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Theodore. "Dinner at Soralina tonight. Wear the blue dress I bought you." She sighed, tucking her phone away as she headed toward the gardener wing for her afternoon rounds. As she approached room 307, her steps slowed. Eleanor Harrington, 78, stage 4 lung cancer. She hesitated before pushing open the door. The elderly woman in the bed looked nothing like the society photographs Savannah had seen. Cancer had hollowed her cheeks and thinned her once famous silver hair, but her eyes, the same piercing blue as her grandson's, remained sharp and evaluating. "So you're the nurse my Elijah can't stop talking about," Eleanor said without preamble. Savannah checked the monitors, maintaining professional composure. "I'm just doing my rounds, Mrs. Harrington." "Eleanor, please." The older woman waved dismissively. "Did you know the Bennetts and Harringtons go back 3 generations in this city?" "I didn't. My husband and Frederick Bennett were partners once, before Frederick tried to steal our pharmaceutical patents." Eleanor's fingers traced the edge of her blanket. "The Bennetts never forgave us for winning that lawsuit." Savannah frowned. "Theodore never mentioned any family history." "I'm sure he didn't." Eleanor's laugh dissolved into a cough. When she recovered, she fixed Savannah with an intense stare. "Tell me, why is a bright young woman like you settling for a man who checks his reflection more often than he looks at you?" "That's not fair. Theodore is calculating, like his father." Eleanor's monitor beeped rapidly. "Perhaps." The door swung open and Elijah entered, his tailored suit replaced by dark jeans and a cashmere sweater pushed to the elbows. His eyes moved from his grandmother to Savannah, registering the tension. "Corrupting my nurse already, Gran?" His tone was light, but concern lined his face. "Someone needs to give this girl a proper warning," Eleanor retorted. Savannah adjusted the foredrip. "Mrs. Harrington should rest. Her blood pressure's elevated." "It's those experimental treatments Bennett prescribed," Elijah muttered. "Dr. Bennett is one of our best oncologists," Savannah defended automatically. Eleanor reached for her hand with surprising strength. "Child, you remind me of myself at your age. Too loyal for your own good." After completing her checks, Savannah headed for the door, but Elijah followed her into the hallway. "She likes you," he said. "Gran doesn't like many people these days. Is that why you tracked me down at my engagement party? To recruit me for your grandmother's medical team?" His expression shifted, something unreadable flickering across his features. "Partially. Have you considered my offer? I can't just leave my patients. I understand loyalty, Savannah, but loyalty to the wrong person can be destructive." He stepped closer. "Theodore's experimental treatment protocol has failed in 3 previous patients." "Did he tell you that?" Her stomach dropped. "That's confidential medical information. I make it my business to protect my family." His gaze softened. "My grandmother needs a private nurse. Someone I can trust to report changes honestly, without Bennett's influence." "You're asking me to spy on my fiancée?" "I'm asking you to ensure my grandmother gets proper medical care." He named a figure that made her breath catch. "Plus comprehensive coverage for your mother's treatments." The mention of her mother weakened her resolve. Patricia Blackwood's MS treatments consumed most of Savannah's salary, leaving her with mounting debt despite Theodore's occasional financial assistance that always came with subtle reminders of her dependence. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you're the only person in Bennett's orbit who seems to care more about patients than politics." His fingers brushed hers as he passed her a folder. "My grandmother's complete medical history. Review it tonight." "I haven't agreed yet." "You will." The confidence in his voice should have angered her, but instead sent heat coursing through her veins. Later that evening, Savannah sat across from Theodore at Soralina, picking at her untouched risotto while he detailed plans for their June wedding. "My mother thinks the Ritz-Carlton ballroom is the only acceptable venue," he said, scanning the room for familiar faces rather than gauging her reaction. "Ted," she interrupted, using the nickname he hated, "Elijah Harrington offered me a position as his grandmother's private nurse." Theodore's fork clattered against fine china. "You declined, of course." "The salary would cover Mom's treatments completely. I could pay off my student loans in a year." His expression hardened. "The Harringtons are manipulators. They build you up, then destroy you, like they did to my father. What happened between your families?" Eleanor mentioned. You spoke with Eleanor Harrington? His voice rose enough that nearby diners glanced their way. He leaned forward, lowering his tone. Listen carefully, Savannah. The Harringtons ruined my father. He died because of them. I'm sorry, I didn't know. You're not taking that job. His hand closed over hers, the diamond ring digging into her finger. We're getting married. You don't need to work for anyone else. Something in his possessive gesture clarified everything. She gently extracted her hand. I think Eleanor needs my help. Theodore's face transformed, his handsome features twisting with fury before smoothing into a calculated smile. If you take this job, our engagement is over. The ultimatum hung between them as her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Gran's fever spiked. Hospital. Now. Savannah stood, decision made. I have to go, as she rushed out. The ring felt suddenly heavy on her finger, like a shackle rather than a promise. Eleanor Harrington's room buzzed with activity when Savannah arrived. 2 nurses checked vitals while a resident adjusted medication dosages. Elijah stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, his posture rigid with tension. 104.2, one nurse reported. BP dropping. Savannah slipped past Elijah, accessing Eleanor's chart. When did the fever start? 2 hours ago. It spiked suddenly after her evening meds. Scanning the medication list, Savannah frowned. Who authorized this combination? These 2 medications can cause dangerous interactions. The resident paled. Dr. Bennett adjusted the protocol this morning. Elijah ended his call, moving to his grandmother's bedside. What's happening? She's having a reaction to the new medication, Savannah explained. Already preparing a counteractive drug. We need to stabilize her before we can determine if there's an underlying infection. For 3 hours, Savannah worked alongside the medical team, monitoring Eleanor's response to treatment. By midnight, the fever had broken, and the elderly woman slept peacefully. The other staff dispersed, leaving Savannah updating charts while Elijah sat beside his grandmother, watching her breathe. You saved her life, he said quietly. I just caught a medication error. An error in Theodore's protocol. His voice held no triumph, only grim certainty. This isn't the first mistake in her treatment. Savannah sank into the chair opposite him. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating facts. He rubbed his temples. 3 patients on similar protocols have died in the past year. All wealthy, all with substantial insurance policies, all under Theodore's care. That doesn't mean. My team has been investigating. He slid a folder across the table. Review it when you're ready to see the truth. Eleanor stirred, her frail hand reaching for Savannah's. Still here, child? Good. We need to talk. Her voice was weak but determined. Gran, you should rest, Elijah cautioned. Hush, boy. I don't have time for rest. Eleanor's grip tightened. Savannah, there's something you should know about your fiancé's family. Savannah glanced at Elijah, who nodded almost imperceptibly. The Bennett-Harrington feud began with a partnership. Eleanor continued. Frederick Bennett and my husband Robert developed breakthrough cancer treatments together. When clinical trials showed promise, Frederick tried stealing the patents. Ancient history, Gran, Elijah murmured. Not so ancient when it's repeating. Eleanor's eyes flashed. Theodore's father, William, blamed us when his investment firm collapsed after the lawsuit. He took his own life rather than face financial ruin. Savannah's stomach twisted. Theodore told me his father died because of your family, but he never mentioned suicide. William Bennett's death broke something in his son. Eleanor's voice softened. Theodore was only 14. That doesn't excuse what he's doing now, Elijah interjected. What exactly is he doing? Savannah asked. Eleanor exchanged glances with Elijah before continuing. 6 months ago, Theodore approached me with an experimental treatment protocol. Initially, results were promising. Then strange symptoms began, symptoms not consistent with my cancer. My regular nurse documented everything, but 2 weeks ago, she suddenly resigned. After her car was vandalized, Elijah added, with a note warning her to mind her own business. Savannah shook her head. This sounds paranoid. Theodore is dedicated to his patients. Is he? Eleanor produced a small notebook from beneath her pillow. This contains my symptoms, medication changes, and Theodore's explanations when things went wrong. Read it, then decide for yourself. A knock interrupted them. Theodore stood in the doorway, his expression shifting from confusion to anger upon seeing Savannah. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. "Saving your patient." Elijah rose, positioning himself between Theodore and the bed. "Your medication protocol nearly killed her." Theodore's professional smile emerged. "A simple misunderstanding. Pharmacy must have mixed up the orders. 3 times in 2 weeks." Eleanor challenged. Theodore approached the bed, ignoring Elijah. "Mrs. Harrington, you're clearly distressed. Perhaps we should discuss your concerns tomorrow when you're rested. Perhaps you should explain why you're testing experimental drugs on my grandmother without proper consent," Elijah countered. Theodore's gaze locked on Savannah. "I see they've enlisted you in their paranoid conspiracy. Disappointing, but not surprising given your background." The contempt in his voice shocked her. "What does my background have to do with anything? People from your socioeconomic circumstances often gravitate toward money and influence." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "How much is Harrington paying you to betray me?" The accusation stung, but before she could respond, Eleanor's monitor began beeping rapidly. Her blood pressure spiking, Savannah moved quickly to the bedside. "Everyone out except essential medical personnel." Theodore scoffed. "I'm her doctor." "And currently agitating her," Savannah countered, professional instincts overriding personal confusion. "Please step outside." After stabilizing Eleanor, Savannah found Elijah and Theodore in heated discussion down the hall. "Your family destroyed my father," Theodore was saying. "You don't get to take everything else from me too." "This isn't about our families," Elijah replied. "It's about patient safety." Theodore noticed Savannah approaching, and his demeanor instantly changed. "Darling, I've been trying to call you all evening. I was worried. I left my phone in my locker," she replied cautiously. Eleanor had a serious reaction to her medication. An unfortunate mistake. He reached for her hand. "Let's go home and discuss this privately." She stepped back. "I'm staying to monitor Eleanor tonight. As her fiancé, I'd advise against that." Theodore's voice hardened. "As her nurse, I'm overriding your opinion," Savannah replied, surprising herself with her firmness. Something dangerous flashed across Theodore's face before he composed himself. "We'll discuss this tomorrow, along with your continued employment at this hospital." After he left, Savannah leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. "You stood your ground," Elijah noted, respect evident in his tone. "I'm just doing my job. The job you might lose for challenging him." She touched her engagement ring absently. "Some things are more important than job security." "Or engagement rings," he observed. Their eyes met, unspoken understanding passing between them. For the first time, Savannah wondered if she'd been engaged to a stranger all along. "I'll take that private nursing position," she decided. Starting immediately, a smile tugged at Elijah's lips. "Welcome to the Harrington payroll, Ms. Blackwood. I suspect things are about to get interesting." Neither of them noticed Theodore watching from around the corner, his expression murderous as he made a quiet phone call. "She's in." Start Phase 2. The first snow of winter dusted Boston as Savannah cleared her locker at Boston Memorial. 2 weeks had passed since she'd accepted Elijah's offer and resigned from the hospital. 2 weeks since she'd removed Theodore's engagement ring, leaving it on his desk with a brief note explaining she needed time to reconsider. She placed her nameplate in a cardboard box alongside framed photos of her patients. Dr. Reynolds, the department head, leaned against the doorframe. "The pediatric ward won't be the same without you," he said. "Are you sure about this decision?" "Eleanor Harrington needs specialized care," Savannah replied, avoiding the real question. "And it has nothing to do with Theodore threatening to have your nursing license reviewed." She froze. "How did you?" Hospital gossip travels faster than sepsis. Reynolds shook his head. "Theodore's claiming you violated patient confidentiality by discussing Eleanor's case with Elijah. That's ridiculous. Elijah is Eleanor's medical proxy." "Be careful, Savannah. The Bennetts have significant influence with the medical board." He hesitated. "For what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice." Elijah waited in the hospital parking garage, leaning against his Aston Martin like something from a magazine spread. Snow gathered on his dark coat as he took her box of belongings. "Ready for your new life?" He opened the passenger door. "It's just a job change," she clarified. His knowing smile suggested otherwise. The Harrington estate sat on 20 acres overlooking Massachusetts Bay, a stone mansion nestled among ancient oaks. As they wound up the private drive, Savannah caught her breath at the sight of the Atlantic stretched beyond cliffs dusted with snow. Your family has lived here for generations? Since 1897. Elijah parked before massive oak doors. Though I've only recently returned. After my father died, I couldn't bear staying. Inside, the house was surprisingly warm, both in temperature and decor. Eleanor had been installed in a sun-filled room overlooking the sea, with medical equipment discreetly integrated into the elegant space. It's beautiful, Savannah breathed. Your quarters connect directly to Grand's suite, Elijah explained, leading her through a richly appointed sitting room to a bedroom with bay windows. You'll have evenings and Sundays off, unless there's an emergency. This is more like a luxury apartment than staff quarters. You're not staff, Savannah. Your family's lifeline. His expression softened. I need someone I can trust completely. Later that evening, after settling Eleanor for the night, Savannah found Elijah in the library, surrounded by documents. He looked up as she entered. Grand's asleep? She nodded, accepting the glass of wine he offered. Her vitals are stable. The new medication seems to be working, thanks to your careful monitoring. His fingers brushed hers as he handed over the glass. Forgive the mess. I'm reviewing Theodore's research funding. Why? Because Meridian Pharmaceuticals, my company, has been the primary backer of his clinical trials. Trials that have shown suspiciously positive results despite patient deaths. She sank into a leather chair. You think he's falsifying data? I think Theodore is desperate to outshine his father's failures. Elijah sat beside her. The Bennett name once commanded respect in Boston's medical community. William's suicide tarnished that legacy. That doesn't make Theodore a criminal. No, but this might. He handed her a folder. Patient records from his previous trials. Death certificates listing cancer as cause of death, when toxicology reports showed lethal levels of experimental compounds. Savannah's hands trembled as she reviewed the documents. This is impossible. Theodore wouldn't sacrifice patients to advance his career, to restore his family's reputation. Elijah leaned closer. You've seen how he treats my grandmother. How he treated you. Memories of Theodore's controlling behavior surfaced. His insistence on approving her work schedule, selecting her wardrobe, monitoring her friendships. Small things that had seemed like protective gestures now appeared sinister in retrospect. I need to process this. She stood abruptly, wine sloshing in her glass. Of course. He didn't press further. Take all the time you need. Days passed in a new routine. Mornings with Eleanor, afternoons reviewing medical literature, evenings often spent with Elijah discussing Eleanor's progress. Despite her professional demeanor, Savannah found herself increasingly drawn to him. His intelligence, his devotion to his grandmother, the vulnerability that occasionally showed through his confident exterior. On her third Sunday off, Savannah visited her mother in her modest apartment in Dorchester. Patricia Blackwood's MS had progressed, but thanks to Elijah's generous compensation package, she now had in-home nursing care and advanced treatments. You look different, Patricia observed over tea. Happier. I'm just focused on work. And not at all on that handsome employer of yours. Patricia's eyes twinkled. The one whose photo you can't stop checking on your phone. Savannah flushed. It's not like that, isn't it? Because the Theodore I met seemed more interested in his reflection than in you. This Elijah fellow calls daily to check on my treatments. He's just being thorough. He's being attentive, Patricia corrected. Something Theodore never was. As if summoned by their conversation, Savannah's phone buzzed with a text from Theodore. We need to talk. Meet me at Cafe Vittoria. 4 p.m. After ensuring her mother was comfortable, Savannah headed to the north end. Snow had begun falling again, coating the city in fresh white. Theodore waited at their old favorite cafe, looking impeccable in a cashmere sweater that matched his eyes. You look well, he greeted her. The Harrington payroll clearly agrees with you. What do you want, Theodore? To warn you. He leaned forward. Elijah Harrington isn't the savior you think he is. His father ruined mine, and now he's using you to destroy me. By providing better care for his grandmother? By seducing my fiancée to access my research. His jaw tightened. Don't be naive, Savannah. You're a means to an end for him. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? He slid a folder across the table. Phone records, security footage, financial reports. Elijah has been planning this for months. He approached you specifically because of our relationship. She left the folder untouched. I don't believe you. Believe the evidence. His voice softened to the tone that once made her heart race. I miss you, Savannah. We can start fresh. Leave Boston. Continue our research elsewhere. What research? The protocols that nearly killed Eleanor. His expression hardened. You've already chosen sides, I see. A commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Elijah stood in the doorway, snow dusting his dark hair, his expression thunderous as he spotted them. Speak of the devil, Theodore muttered. Elijah approached their table. Everything all right here? Fine, Savannah replied, surprised by his presence. How did you know where I was? GPS tracking in the company car. At her alarmed expression, he clarified. Standard security protocol. I was concerned when you didn't return by the time the storm warning was issued. Theodore's laugh was cold. Always watching, aren't you, Harrington? Only protecting what matters. Elijah's gaze held Savannah's. We should leave before the roads worsen. Something in his protective stance, the genuine concern in his eyes, made her decision simple. She stood, leaving Theodore's folder untouched. Goodbye, Theodore. Outside, the snow fell harder, muffling the city sounds. Elijah guided her toward his car. You didn't have to check on me, she said. Yes, I did. He stopped, turning to face her. Snowflakes clung to her eyelashes, and without thinking, he brushed them away, his touch lingering. I worry about you, Savannah. The space between them seemed to contract, the cold air charged with unspoken tension. His lips hovered inches from hers, breath visible in the winter air. This is complicated, she whispered. The most important things usually are. When his lips finally met hers, the sensation was overwhelming, warmth spreading through her despite the snow swirling around them. His arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer as the kiss deepened from tentative to certain. Neither of them noticed Theodore watching from the cafe window, cell phone in hand as he snapped photos, his expression calculating as he dialed a number. It's time, he said to the person who answered. Initiate the takeover. 3 weeks after their kiss in the snowstorm, Savannah woke to the sound of urgent voices downstairs. The January dawn barely illuminated her room at the Harrington estate as she pulled on a robe and hurried toward the commotion. Elijah stood in the library with his legal team, his usual composed demeanor replaced by cold fury. Computer screens displayed plummeting stock charts and news headlines. Meridian Pharmaceuticals under federal investigation for fraud. What's happening? She asked from the doorway. Elijah looked up, his expression softening momentarily before hardening again. Someone leaked fabricated research data to the FDA and SEC, claiming our cancer treatments are ineffective and our clinical trials manipulated. That's absurd, Savannah said, moving to his side. Your grandmother's improvement proves otherwise. Facts won't matter if the stock price crashes before we can respond. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. This attack was coordinated to coincide with our quarterly earnings report. The lead attorney, a stern woman named Vanessa, looked up from her laptop. The leaks came from multiple sources, all anonymized. But the data originated from Bennett's research division. Theodore. The name fell from Savannah's lips with newfound understanding. Elijah nodded grimly. This is his revenge. Over the following days, Savannah watched Elijah work tirelessly to save his company. The investigation caused investors to panic, and Meridian stock lost 40% of its value. Meanwhile, Theodore made a public statement distancing himself from the unfortunate situation, while expressing concern about patients receiving Meridian Pharmaceuticals. He's positioning himself as the whistleblower, Elijah explained one night as they reviewed documents in the library, making himself look like the ethical doctor concerned about patient safety. Savannah pored over Eleanor's medical records. We need to prove your treatments are working. Eleanor's case could help. One case study isn't enough. We need. Elijah's phone rang, interrupting him. His expression darkened as he listened. When? How much? I see. After ending the call, he stared out the window at the winter sea, his profile sharp against the darkness. What is it? Savannah asked. Vital Core Pharmaceuticals just made a hostile takeover bid for Meridian. His voice was dangerously quiet. Their CEO is Richard Coleman. Should I know that name? Richard Coleman was my father's former business partner, and Theodore Bennett's godfather. The pieces clicked into place. They're working together. They've been planning this for months. He turned to face her, his expression torn between anger and resignation. Coleman always wanted Meridian. Using Theodore to orchestrate my downfall is elegantly vicious. Savannah moved to his side, placing her hand over his. We'll fight back. His fingers intertwined with hers. This isn't your battle, Savannah. It became mine the moment Theodore used me as a pawn. Her voice strengthened with resolve. And when he endangered your grandmother. A knock interrupted them. Mrs. Winters, the housekeeper, appeared with a troubled expression. Ms. Blackwood, there's a Detective Carson here to see you. Something about patient records. Two police officers waited in the foyer, their expressions grave. Savannah Blackwood, the older one asked. I'm Detective Carson. We need to ask you some questions about confidential patient files accessed under your credentials at Boston Memorial. Elijah stepped forward. My attorney should be present for this. That's her choice, Carson replied. But we're investigating a serious breach of medical ethics. Multiple patient files were copied to external drives using Ms. Blackwood's login credentials. That's impossible, Savannah protested. I haven't accessed the hospital system since I resigned. According to hospital records, you accessed and downloaded files at 2 a.m. last Tuesday. Carson checked his notes. Files specifically related to Dr. Bennett's clinical trials. Understanding dawned on her. Theodore still had my password. We shared login information when we were engaged. Convenient explanation, Carson remarked skeptically. Dr. Bennett submitted a formal complaint alleging you stole confidential research to benefit Meridian Pharmaceuticals. That's absurd, Elijah interjected. Savannah has been here every night for weeks. Can you prove that? Carson asked. Security footage, staff testimony, Elijah replied. But more importantly, what motive would she have? Financial gain. Carson nodded toward Elijah. Her salary tripled when she joined the Harrington payroll, and there's evidence of significant deposits to her mother's medical care account. Savannah felt the blood drain from her face. My mother's treatments are part of my compensation package. Either way, we'll need you to come with us for further questioning. As Savannah gathered her coat, Elijah caught her arm. Don't say anything without Vanessa present. I'll have her meet you at the station. This is Theodore's doing, she whispered. He's framing me. I know. His eyes held hers with fierce intensity. Trust me, Savannah. I won't let him destroy you. Hours later, after exhaustive questioning with Vanessa's expert guidance, Savannah was released without charges, but with the investigation still pending. Eleanor's condition had deteriorated in her absence, the stress triggering complications. She's asking for you, Elijah said when Savannah returned, his voice hoarse from worry. Eleanor lay pale against her pillows, oxygen tubes distorting her aristocratic features. She beckoned Savannah closer. They're trying to separate us, the older woman whispered. Bennett and Coleman have wanted Harrington assets for decades. Save your strength, Savannah urged, adjusting the oxygen flow. No time. Eleanor gripped her hand. In my desk, third drawer, there's a USB drive. Robert's original research, proving the treatments work. Take it to Dr. Winters at Mass General. He was Robert's colleague. He'll understand. Over the next week, while Eleanor's condition stabilized, Savannah and Elijah worked with Dr. Winters to validate the research. Meanwhile, more accusations emerged. Claims that Savannah had manipulated Eleanor's medical data, that Elijah had bribed hospital officials. Each allegation more outrageous than the last. Then came the photographs. Savannah discovered them on the front page of the Boston Herald. Images of her and Elijah kissing in the snowstorm outside Cafe Vittoria, alongside candid shots of them at the Harrington estate. The headline screamed, Medical Ethics Scandal. Nurse leaves fiancé for billionaire boss. Theodore's statement appeared prominently. I'm devastated by this betrayal, both personally and professionally. I fear my former fiancé's relationship with Elijah Harrington may have compromised patient safety and research integrity. The article detailed Theodore's heartbreak at discovering his fiancé's affair with Harrington, subtly implying that Savannah had stolen research to benefit her new lover's pharmaceutical company. The damage was immediate. The nursing board initiated an ethics investigation. Meridian's stock tumbled further. News vans gathered at the estate gates. He's destroyed my reputation, Savannah said numbly, staring at the newspaper. No hospital will hire me after this. This was never about you, Elijah realized, anger hardening his features. Theodore used you to get to me, to weaken Meridian for Coleman's takeover. That evening, as they discussed strategy with the legal team, Mrs. Winters interrupted with urgent news. Miss Blackwood's mother has been taken to Boston Memorial. Apparent MS complication. Savannah's world tilted. Theodore works at Boston Memorial. Elijah was already reaching for his car keys. I'm coming with you. No, she stopped him. This might be another trap. If we're seen together at the hospital, it only strengthens Theodore's narrative. His expression twisted with frustration. I can't just do nothing. Focus on saving your company, she urged. I'll handle my mother. At Boston Memorial, Savannah found Patricia heavily sedated in the neurology ward. Dr. Reynolds met her outside the room. This isn't an MS flare, he confided, voice low. Her blood work shows abnormal levels of immunosuppressants, much higher than her prescription. She was deliberately overdosed? Horror washed over Savannah. I can't prove it, but yes, I believe so. Reynolds glanced around nervously. Bennett was her admitting physician, though she wasn't even his patient. Fury replaced Savannah's fear. Where is he now? Surgical floor. Reynolds hesitated. Savannah, be careful. There are rumors Theodore is working with Vital Core on a major deal. If he's behind this, then he's just made his biggest mistake. She squeezed Reynolds' arm gratefully. Watch over my mother. Don't let Theodore near her. As Savannah headed toward the surgical floor, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Parking garage. Level B. Proof you need. Come alone. Changing direction, Savannah took the elevator to the parking level, adrenaline sharpening her senses. The garage was dimly lit and eerily quiet when she emerged. Hello, she called. A figure stepped from behind a concrete pillar, a nurse Savannah recognized from oncology. Rebecca, what are you doing here? Paying a debt. Rebecca handed over a USB drive. This contains Theodore's actual research data, the real results he's been hiding. Patient deaths, falsified improvements, everything. Why are you giving me this? Rebecca's eyes darted nervously. My brother was one of his trial patients. He died last year from what Theodore claimed were expected complications. I've been collecting evidence since then. This could destroy Theodore's career. That's the idea. Rebecca backed toward the exit. I was never here. Savannah clutched the drive, hope surging for the first time in days. With this evidence, they could clear her name, vindicate Elijah, and expose Theodore's corruption. As she turned to leave, headlights suddenly blinded her, an engine revving ominously. A dark sedan accelerated in her direction, tires screeching against concrete. Savannah dove between parked cars as the vehicle crashed into the space she'd occupied seconds earlier. Through the windshield, she glimpsed Theodore's face, contorted with rage, before the car reversed and sped away. Shaking, she called Elijah, her voice breaking as she described what happened. He tried to kill me, Elijah. He actually tried to kill me. Get out of there now, Elijah ordered, fear evident in his voice. I'm sending security to meet you. As Savannah fled the garage, she realized the stakes had escalated beyond professional rivalry or personal vendetta. Theodore was desperate enough to attempt murder, which meant only one thing. The evidence she now possessed was powerful enough to destroy him completely. With newfound determination, she clutched the USB drive that might save them all, unaware that Theodore had already set in motion a contingency plan that would separate her from Elijah more effectively than any scandal could. 6 months had passed since Savannah fled Boston. Portland's gray skies matched her mood as she stared at her growing belly. At 28 weeks pregnant, she could no longer deny the life growing inside her, Elijah's child, conceived during their brief time together. She hadn't told him. After Theodore's attempted hit-and-run, things had escalated beyond imagination. The evidence from Rebecca had indeed exposed Theodore's research fraud, but the victory was short-lived. When federal agents arrived to question Theodore, they found his office ransacked and the doctor missing. Then came the threats, notes left on Savannah's windshield describing her mother's daily routine, photos of her entering physical therapy. The message was clear: stay and everyone she loved would suffer. So she ran, leaving everything behind. Her career, her mother, now safely relocated to a specialized facility under an assumed name, and Elijah. She left only a hastily written note. I need time. Please don't look for me. But Elijah had looked. His investigators had tracked her to 3 different cities before she'd covered her tracks more carefully. Each time she saw a dark sedan or a tall figure resembling Elijah, her heart raced with equal parts hope and terror. Her phone rang. Her new supervisor at Portland Memorial's pediatric ward. Ms. Evans? Dr. Mercer here. A gentleman is asking for you. Says he's your former patient's grandfather. Savannah's blood froze. She'd been using her mother's maiden name. Nobody should know her here. What does he look like? Elderly, distinguished. Using a cane. Name's Robert Harrington. Relief washed over her. Eleanor's husband died years ago. Well, someone's impersonating him. Thought you should know. After her shift, Savannah drove cautiously to her small apartment, constantly checking her rearview mirror. As she parked, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows. Not Theodore, but Eleanor Harrington herself. Friendlier but unmistakable. You're a difficult woman to find, Eleanor said, leaning heavily on her cane. How did you? My grandson isn't the only one with resources. Eleanor studied Savannah's pregnant form. I see my great-grandchild is thriving. Inside her apartment, Savannah made tea while Eleanor settled into the worn couch. Elijah doesn't know, Eleanor stated simply. It's safer this way. Safer. Eleanor's eyebrow arched. Theodore Bennett disappeared 6 months ago. His last known location was Mexico. The FBI believes he's dead. Hope flickered dangerously. Dead. His boat was found capsized near Cancun. No body recovered, but significant blood evidence confirmed as his. That doesn't mean. It means you're hiding from ghosts, Eleanor interrupted. Meanwhile, my grandson is destroying himself trying to find you. Savannah's hand instinctively covered her belly. How is he? Meridian recovered after Theodore's fraud was exposed. Elijah salvaged the company, cleared your name with the nursing board. But he's... Eleanor hesitated. He's not the same man. He believes you left because of the scandal, because loving him cost you too much. Shame and longing tangled in Savannah's chest. I was protecting him. By breaking his heart. Eleanor's voice softened. Theodore's threats died with him. It's time to come home. I can't just... A knock interrupted them. Through the peephole, Savannah saw a delivery man holding flowers. She opened the door cautiously. Savannah Evans, he asked, offering a bouquet of white roses. Yes. Special delivery. His friendly smile transformed into something chilling as he reached inside his jacket. Eleanor shouted a warning. Savannah slammed the door, but not before catching a glimpse of familiar blue eyes, Theodore's eyes, in the delivery man's face. Back door. Savannah grabbed Eleanor's arm, helping her through the kitchen as the front door splintered open. They escaped into the rainy evening, Eleanor struggling to keep pace. Savannah managed to get them to her car, tires squealing as they fled. Theodore's alive, Savannah gasped, hands shaking on the steering wheel. So it seems. Eleanor's composure was remarkable given the circumstances. We need to call Elijah. No. Panic edged Savannah's voice. If Theodore knows I'm pregnant. Understanding dawned in Eleanor's eyes. He'd have leverage over both of you. Exactly. Savannah checked her rearview mirror, seeing no pursuit yet. I need to disappear again. Somewhere Theodore can't find me. You can't keep running. Eleanor pulled out her phone. Elijah deserves to know about his child. And he's the only one who can end this nightmare permanently. As Eleanor dialed, Savannah fought contradicting emotions. Terror at Theodore's resurrection, and overwhelming longing to see Elijah again. The baby kicked as if sensing her turmoil. Elijah. Eleanor's voice cracked with emotion. I found her. Yes, she's safe. But there's more. Theodore's alive. And she met Savannah's eyes, seeking permission. Savannah nodded, tears streaming down her face. You're going to be a father, Eleanor said softly. And if you want to meet your child, you need to get to Portland immediately. The storm intensified as Savannah and Eleanor checked into a remote motel outside Portland. Rain lashed against windows while thunder rattled the thin walls of their room. Savannah paced nervously, one hand resting protectively over her belly. Elijah's private jet is en route, Eleanor announced, ending a call. He'll be here by morning. If we survive that long. Savannah peered through curtains at the deserted parking lot. Theodore could have followed us. My security team is positioned outside. Eleanor eased herself onto the bed, fatigue evident in her movements. Savannah, there's something you should know about Theodore. Savannah turned, sensing the gravity in Eleanor's tone. After his father's suicide, Theodore was institutionalized briefly. The doctors diagnosed him with a personality disorder characterized by extreme narcissism and an inability to accept rejection. Eleanor's fingers twisted her wedding ring. The Bennetts kept it quiet, of course. Paid for private treatment, buried the records. How do you know this? Robert, my husband, felt responsible for William's death. He kept tabs on Theodore, tried to help from a distance. Eleanor's eyes reflected ancient regret. When Theodore entered medical school, Robert was hopeful he'd recovered. We were wrong. A sharp pain suddenly gripped Savannah's abdomen. She gasped, doubling over. What is it? Eleanor moved to her side with surprising agility. Contraction. Savannah breathed through the pain. Too early. The baby's not due for another 3 months. Eleanor helped her to the bed. Stress can trigger premature labor. We need to get you to a hospital. No hospitals, Savannah insisted. Theodore has medical connections everywhere. You're thinking of your child's safety. I'm thinking of your survival. Eleanor reached for her phone. I'm calling an ambulance. The motel room door crashed open before she could dial. Theodore stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his expensive coat, a gun steady in his hand. How touching, he said, his familiar smile now chilling. A family reunion. Eleanor positioned herself between Theodore and Savannah. Haven't you done enough damage, Bennett? Damage? Theodore laughed. I'm simply reclaiming what's mine. My research. My reputation. His cold gaze fixed on Savannah's pregnant form. My fiancée. I was never yours, Savannah stated firmly despite her fear. Another contraction seized her, stronger than before. She bit back a cry, but Theodore noticed her pain with professional assessment. Premature labor, he observed clinically. Dangerous for the child. Harrington's child, I presume. Leave us alone, Eleanor demanded. The authorities already know you're alive. There's nowhere you can run. I'm not running. Theodore closed the door behind him. I've spent 6 months rebuilding my network, accessing offshore accounts. Tonight, I settle all debts. Starting with you, Mrs. Harrington. He raised the gun toward Eleanor, but before he could fire, headlights swept across the windows. A vehicle had entered the parking lot. Theodore moved to the window, momentarily distracted. Eleanor seized the opportunity, grabbing the lamp from the nightstand and swinging it at his head. The blow glanced off his shoulder, causing him to stumble but not fall. Foolish old woman. Theodore snarled, recovering his balance. He struck Eleanor with the gun, sending her crumpling to the floor. Eleanor. Savannah cried out, attempting to rise despite another contraction. The motel room door burst open once more. Elijah stood framed in the doorway, rain-soaked and murderous with rage. Step away from them, he commanded, his voice deadly quiet. Theodore's smile returned. Perfect timing. The whole Harrington legacy in one room. It's over, Bennett. Elijah entered slowly, eyes fixed on the gun. The FBI is minutes behind me. Then we don't have much time. Theodore gestured toward Savannah. She's in labor. Early, dangerous. She needs medical attention only I can provide. Another contraction hit, more intense than before. Savannah couldn't suppress her cry of pain. The baby, she gasped. Something's wrong. Elijah's composure faltered at her distress. Let me take her to a hospital, so you can be one happy family. Theodore's face twisted with hatred. You took everything from me, Harrington. My father's reputation, my research, my future. I took nothing, Elijah countered, inching closer. Your father's choices destroyed him. Your own actions destroyed you. Liar. Theodore raised the gun toward Elijah. Your father stole our patents, drove my father to suicide. You seduced Savannah to humiliate me. You orchestrated my downfall. As Theodore's emotional state deteriorated, Eleanor stirred on the floor. Disoriented but conscious, she reached for her fallen cane. She never loved you, Elijah stated calmly, drawing Theodore's focus. She chose me. She carries my child. Nothing you do can change that. Theodore's control snapped. He lunged toward Elijah, gun aimed at his heart. If I can't have her, neither will you. Eleanor swung her cane, catching Theodore's ankles. He stumbled, the gun firing into the ceiling as Elijah tackled him. They crashed into the dresser, struggling for control of the weapon. Through a haze of pain, Savannah watched the men she loved and hated locked in mortal combat. Another contraction seized her, this one accompanied by a rush of fluid. My water broke, she whispered, terror overwhelming her as she realized her child might be born into this nightmare. A final gunshot echoed through the small room. Time seemed to freeze after the gunshot. Savannah's scream pierced the silence as both men collapsed to the floor. Eleanor crawled to them, her aristocratic composure shattered by fear. "Elijah!" she cried, reaching for her grandson. To Savannah's overwhelming relief, Elijah rose to his knees, blood staining his shirt, but alert and moving. Theodore lay motionless beside him, the gun still clutched in his hand, a spreading crimson stain across his chest. "He shot himself," Elijah said hoarsely. When I forced his arm back, the gun, another contraction consumed Savannah, stronger than any before. "The baby," she gasped. "It's coming now." Elijah was at her side instantly, his own injury forgotten. "Hold on, sweetheart. Help is coming." The wail of approaching sirens confirmed his words. Within minutes, paramedics burst into the room, quickly assessing the chaotic scene. Theodore's lifeless body, Elijah's wounded shoulder, Eleanor's head injury, and Savannah in active labor. 28 weeks, contractions 2 minutes apart, Savannah managed through gritted teeth, her nurse's training surfacing despite the circumstances. In the ambulance racing toward Portland's University Hospital, Elijah held Savannah's hand while paramedics monitored her condition. FBI agents followed in separate vehicles, already gathering statements from Eleanor. "I'm sorry," Savannah whispered between contractions. "I should have told you about the baby. You were protecting our child." Elijah's eyes, so like his grandmother's, shimmered with emotion. "But never leave me again, Savannah. Whatever comes, we face it together." The next 12 hours passed in a blur of medical procedures, law enforcement interviews, and terrifying uncertainty. When Savannah delivered a tiny but perfect baby girl weighing just over 2 pounds, the delivery room fell silent before the miraculous sound of indignant crying filled the air. "Strong lungs," the doctor commented with relief. "A fighter, like her parents." The neonatal team whisked the infant away to the NICU while surgeons attended to Elijah's shoulder wound. Eleanor, diagnosed with a mild concussion, refused to leave the hospital despite doctors' recommendations. She maintained a steadfast vigil outside the NICU, her aristocratic bearing commanding respect from hospital staff. By morning, the full story had emerged through FBI debriefings. Theodore had faked his death after the fraud exposure, using a stolen identity to rebuild his resources. Obsessed with destroying the Harringtons and reclaiming Savannah, he'd tracked Eleanor to Portland through a compromised member of her medical team. "It's truly over now," FBI agent Rivera confirmed, closing her notebook after taking Savannah's statement. "Bennett's death has been confirmed. His network is being dismantled as we speak." 1 year later, the cliffside gardens of the Harrington estate bloomed with spring flowers. The renovated East Wing gleamed in the May sunshine as staff made final preparations for the afternoon's celebration. In the master suite, Savannah gazed at her reflection in a full-length mirror, hardly recognizing the confident woman who stared back. Her cream-colored gown, simple yet elegant, caught the light as she turned. "You look radiant," Eleanor announced from the doorway, the past year's health improvements evident in her stronger posture and brightened eyes. "Thanks to you," Savannah replied, embracing the older woman who had become more mother than employer. "Your miracle treatments worked wonders for both of us." "Science, not miracles," Eleanor corrected, though her smile suggested otherwise. "Though that child of yours might qualify as miraculous." As if summoned by mention, little Charlotte toddled into the room, dark curls bouncing around a face that perfectly blended Savannah's delicate features with Elijah's intensity. At 15 months, she showed the resilience that had helped her survive her premature birth, with no lasting complications beyond a slight tendency to catch colds. "Mama," Charlotte raised her arms imperiously, her vocabulary growing daily. Savannah lifted her daughter, careful not to wrinkle her dress. "Where's Daddy, sweetheart? Is he ready?" "Ready as I'll ever be," Elijah answered, appearing in the doorway. Despite the casual chambray shirt and jeans, his concession to the day's informality, he carried himself with the confidence that had first captured Savannah's attention that fateful night at the hospital benefit. "It's bad luck to see the bride before the ceremony," Eleanor chided, though her expression remained indulgent. "We've had enough bad luck to last a lifetime," Elijah countered, crossing the room to kiss Savannah softly. "I'm not risking another minute apart." The past year had transformed them both. After Charlotte's release from the NICU, they'd focused on healing, physically and emotionally. The ghost of Theodore Bennett gradually faded as they built a new life together, merging Savannah's compassionate pragmatism with Elijah's visionary ambition. Meridian Pharmaceuticals had not only recovered but flourished under their joint leadership. Savannah's patient-centered approach revolutionized their clinical protocols, while Eleanor's experience informed groundbreaking cancer treatments, now saving lives worldwide. The small wedding ceremony unfolded on the cliffside terrace overlooking Massachusetts Bay. Unlike the ostentatious celebration Theodore had once planned, this gathering included only those who truly mattered. Eleanor, resplendent as mother of the groom, Patricia Blackwood, her MS in remission thanks to Meridian's treatments, Charlotte, serving as both flower girl and ring bearer with the assist of a patient family friend, and a handful of colleagues who had stood by them through the darkest days. Dr. Reynolds read a poem about resilience and love. Eleanor recounted the family legend of the Harrington sapphire ring that now graced Savannah's finger, a tradition spanning 5 generations, symbolizing loyalty outlasting hardship. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the small gathering erupted in genuine celebration. Yet amid the joyful chaos, Elijah led Savannah to a quiet corner of the terrace, the ocean stretching endlessly before them. "Happy?" he asked simply, his thumb tracing the curve of her cheek. "Beyond words," she replied, leaning into his touch. "Though I still can't believe this is real sometimes." "Which part? Marrying a billionaire, surviving a psychopath, or having the world's most perfect daughter?" She laughed, the sound carrying on the sea breeze. "All of it. Especially finding love when I least expected it." Speaking of unexpected, Elijah reached into his pocket, producing a small envelope. One final wedding gift. Inside, Savannah found documents establishing the Theodore Bennett Memorial Mental Health Center, a facility dedicated to treating personality disorders and supporting families affected by suicide. "You named it after him?" she asked, astonished. "Not to honor him," Elijah clarified, "but to transform his legacy from destruction into healing. Some good should come from everything we endured." His wisdom, finding redemption even in their darkest chapter, reminded Savannah why she had fallen in love with this complex man who refused to let bitterness claim his heart. As Charlotte toddled toward them, arms outstretched and face alight with joy, Savannah embraced her new family, finally confident that their future together outshone any shadows from the past. The billionaire had indeed refused to let her go, not through force or manipulation as Theodore had attempted, but through the patient, steadfast love that had ultimately healed them both. 5 years later, the sun cast long shadows across the Harrington estate as Charlotte, now 6 years old, chased her 3-year-old brother Robert through the garden maze. Their laughter carried on the summer breeze to the terrace where Savannah sat reviewing patient files from the Harrington Foundation's newest cancer treatment facility. "Mommy, look," Charlotte called, her dark curls bouncing as she proudly displayed a butterfly perched on her finger. Robert followed behind, his steps still unsteady but determined. Savannah smiled, setting aside her tablet to fully appreciate the moment. These ordinary joys had become her most treasured possessions, more valuable than the Harrington fortune that now partly belonged to her. "They're getting faster," Elijah observed, emerging from his home office with 2 glasses of lemonade. A few strands of silver now threaded through his dark hair, lending him an even more distinguished appearance at 38. "Too fast," Savannah agreed, accepting the drink. "Charlotte starts 1st grade next month. I can hardly believe it." They watched their children resume their game, supervised by Mrs. Winters, who had transitioned from housekeeper to honorary grandmother after Eleanor's peaceful passing the previous winter. The Theodore Bennett Memorial Mental Health Center had flourished beyond expectations, now operating in 3 states with groundbreaking treatment programs. Theodore's research, the legitimate portions, had been repurposed to help rather than harm, while the Harrington Blackwood Scholarship provided education for children who had lost parents to suicide. Meridian Pharmaceuticals had evolved into Meridian Health Partners under their joint leadership, with Savannah's patient-centered approach revolutionizing treatment protocols. Her nursing credentials had expanded to include a master's degree in public health, earned between pregnancies and foundation work. "Have you seen the latest trial results?" Elijah asked, his fingers intertwining with hers. "The breast cancer protocol is showing a 94% success rate." Eleanor would be proud, Savannah replied softly. Her treatments laid the groundwork. She was proud of you, you know. Said you were the daughter she never had. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by distant childish giggles and the occasional gull crying over the bay. These peaceful moments still sometimes struck Savannah as surreal after the trauma that had marked their beginning. Her mother, Patricia, now lived in the renovated guest house, her MS in complete remission thanks to treatments developed at Meridian. Dr. Reynolds had joined their board of directors, while Rebecca, the nurse who had provided crucial evidence against Theodore, now managed patient advocacy for the foundation. Any regrets? Elijah asked suddenly, his expression thoughtful as he studied her face. Savannah considered the question, thinking of the dangerous path that had led them here, the threats, the violence, the fear. Yet without those trials, they might never have discovered their strength, both individually and together. Not one, she answered truthfully, leaning forward to kiss him as their children's laughter provided the perfect soundtrack to a life that had transformed from nightmare to dream. The innocent virgin engaged to another had indeed found her way to the billionaire who refused to let her go. But in the end, it was she who held tightly to him, to their children, to the life they had built from adversity's ashes, a phoenix rising, wings spread wide against the endless sky.